Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany Petty and Dr. Rena Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started.
Before we kick off today's episode, I want to warn you that Dr. Kuba starts this episode with, what do you know? Drama. She then has a little bit of an epiphany later on that she wanted to make sure went on air before she jabs half of our listeners. So I'm going to tee her up here with a voice memo that she left for me when she saw a different perspective. So here we go.
I thought of another example, an example of, so that the guys could see like things that they have to deal with that we don't. One that came to mind the other night when we were at study club, when you and I were presenting, and one of the docs in the audience said something about dealing with like sexual harassment. And I was like, you know what? That is something that females typically don't have to deal with. But in general, most dental offices are full of women, very few men. And if you're a male assistant, or a hygienist, you cannot be caught in a room with a female patient by yourself. Same with the docs, or even if you did nothing, like the odds of somebody complaining and claiming sexual harassment if they get let go is far more for a male. Like, I've never had to worry about that. I don't even think about that. And I've had male associates, and I just have never. So that's something that the guys have to worry about just because they're men. That women, for the most part, we don't have to. And the other thing was like, if it's ever any maternity type whatevers, I just feel like guys can't say a word. Like, they'd have to just pretty much put their hands up and deal with whatever a pregnant female says, versus me, like, yeah, I mean, it might take a minute, or it might take something really extreme for a female employee to come at me with something about pregnancy because she knows I've been pregnant too, and I could probably call her bluff, versus the guys don't get that luxury. So guys, I there are examples where just because you're men, you do get the short end of the stick. But the point of those female episodes was there are things that y'all won't be able to understand, just like I can't understand all the fear y'all have with a sexual harassment claim. So anyway, I was trying to stir them up. This is me trying to be more level-headed and fair, but really wanted to come up with an example to kind of show that there are things just by being male that they have to deal with that we don't. And I acknowledge that. Likewise, I just would hope that they would acknowledge there are things that females have to go through that they don't have to. The end.
Hey. Okay, I do have a topic for today, but can I rile up at least 50% of your audience with the comment?
Oh gosh. Okay, bring it.
Bring the drama. Apparently, gentlemen, y'all are all up in arms about our females have it tough podcasts that we did.
Yes.
And y'all have like major voices heard to Bethany that y'all don't agree, and that y'all have these problems too. And so I just wanted to put in my 2 cents. I don't know how you're handling all these comments, Bethany, but my 2 cents. I firmly stand behind what we said. I firmly believe that females do have it different. That's not saying that you guys don't have the same challenges or the problems. And it's not saying that it's your fault. You can't help that you're male, and you can't help that that's how things are perceived. But make no mistake, and I don't expect y'all to understand. You can't. You won't. So that's fine if you
just like a female won't understand a male practice owner world. Like, it's just different perspectives. Ultimately,
it's just different perspectives. But I just had to get my 2 riled up, started off down and dirty. Anybody want to spar off? I'm happy to go at it. Come on down to Dallas. Let's spar. Actually, I don't want to spar because it don't even matter. It's like religion. We don't need to talk about it because we're just not going to agree at the end of the day. But I just felt like starting with that knife wound right in there. We hear you.
We hear you.
And we don't agree.
We don't agree with you. You don't agree with us. Well, and honestly, I think it is that feeling of like, oh, you made it seem like it's so easy for us. And no, I know practice ownership is not easy for anybody. Male, female, black, white, it doesn't matter. It's hard for anybody. I just think it's hard in different ways.
And that's all we were trying to say in those episodes.
Yes. And we're trying to put a little spotlight on how it's hard in different ways for females in particular. And so, yeah, that ruffled some feathers. But no, it's hard for everybody.
But I still want to ruffle. So that's why I'm here. Ruffling away.
Okay, 50%. Keep listening. There's more to come.
Or don't. I don't know. I'm kidding. No, please keep listening. So I just wanted to start off with that jackass comment just to get, the ball rolling here. And so now on to the topic.
Yeah.
You want to move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay. So the topic here is we visited family in California over the long Labor Day weekend. And my in-laws were super excited because they had not a Tex-Mex, I guess, because it was a California Mex restaurant, whatever. And they've always loved Tex-Mex. And they're like, oh, we just don't get food this good in California. So sorry to Californians. It's not me who's saying it. It's my in-laws that have lived in California for 50 plus years. Like, they're the ones who are like, oh, we just don't have this great, like, Tex-Mex type food. But we finally found a restaurant. We can't wait for y'all to come visit next to take y'all to this restaurant. So they knew that was one place where we were going to go eat. So we're like, okay, cool. We're excited. We show up at the restaurant, and it was a beautiful restaurant. It's in this, California. It's just the picturesque, Bay Area, mountains in the background everywhere, and perfect weather everywhere all the time. So we get seated, and it takes forever. There's nobody to be found, to come to our table. So 10 minutes go by. Nobody comes to serve us, whatever. I think my husband finally kind of flagged somebody down. So eventually, then maybe 2 or 3 minutes later, a waitress shows up. She's probably mid-50s, I would say. And, kind of mumbled whatever she mumbled at us. And, do y'all want drinks? And we're like, well, can we get a menu? Do you have a drink menu? And a kid's menu, whatever. Disappears for a while again, comes back, gives us some menus, disappears again. So this was just taking, forever. And finally, so she comes back, and we had already decided at that point, we need to order our food and our drink together. Because, we were hoping to leave there before dinner, because it's lunchtime. So anyway, I'm at the head of the table on one side. My kid's on the other end of the table. There's 8 of us, so it's, a decent-sized table. And I could hear the woman, and I hear my kid say something like, can I get a chicken quesadilla? And the woman says something to her, and my daughter's like, I'm sorry, what was that? The woman repeats. And my kid turns to me at the end of the table. She's like, Mama, I'm like, sorry, what is it? What's the question? Well, do you want chicken blah blah or chicken asado? And I'm like, what is the difference? You're giving 2 options. Clearly it's not anywhere in your menu that there are 2 options, and there's no description of either one. I guess to me, my thought was, clearly this kid has this is the 3rd time now we're asking you about what this is, and you just keep repeating the same thing. Yeah. Chicken blah blah, chicken asado, chicken blah blah, chicken asado, chicken blah, to finally where I was like, what is the difference? What is chicken asado and what is chicken blah blah, whatever? And she's like, well, one is pieces, one is shredded. Oh, okay, then we'll go with the pieces. Okay. Then we move on, and the rest of us order, and then I hear my husband say something like, oh, I wanted to make sure mine was on the rocks salt. She's like, yes, you ordered a classic margarita. Then my father-in-law said, well, I didn't want salt, but, I wanted mine on the rocks as well. And then she repeats back something. And my mother-in-law, so I'm already, I guess I had tuned out. But to me, I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm just kind of in Tex-Mex land here, but it's pretty standard. When you order a margarita, the pretty standard question is rocks or frozen, salt, no salt. And then it gets more complicated from there, depending on the venue and what they pride as their,
signature drink or something like that.
Exactly. So I'm kind of tuning in going, why are they having to repeat their margarita orders? And my mother-in-law is like, no, I wanted frozen. I'm like, did this woman not ask them what they wanted? Who's being the dummies here? My family or this woman? Because to me it seemed kind of like they were going back and forth over this. And So finally, my mother-in-law's like, yeah, I ordered the classic. I want a frozen. Well, that's not a frozen. Huh? Which one's not a frozen? So like now you've got my in-laws, the elders kind of going, huh? What? Huh? You know, and my husband, huh? Who? And I'm just like, what is going on? So the woman's like, well, a classic is this one. What you ordered is a Luna Rica. That's the frozen, whatever. And in my mind, I'm like,
who cares what it's called?
Get the woman a freaking frozen margarita.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated. Like, we're not sitting in a Thai restaurant that it might be a little off the wall to kind of clarify these questions. Like, we are in a Mexican establishment.
Yeah.
And you took the order, but you didn't clarify initially. Now she's trying to clarify, and she's calling it a frozen. And anyway, so I kind of just snickered, because in my mind, I'm like, this is terrible service. So the woman, like, and then, one more thing. Then we ordered, I said something about, fajitas. Those are paradillas, or whatever they had a different name on their menu for it. And I remember looking at it going, well, they don't have fajitas on this menu. That's odd. And then as I looked, they called it whatever they called it. Maybe it's a more authentic term, but sitting here in Tex-Mex land, I'm like, fajitas over here. Like, I don't know. But when I read the description, I'm like, oh, that's what it is. So she had to correct us on that too. She corrected me on that. And so she walks away, and I think I kind of snickered, and I looked at my father-in-law, and he was kind of had this look on his face too. We all just looked at each other. We just started laughing, going, you know, like, this is clearly like in your lingo. We're not up to par with your restaurant's lingo.
Well, and it's your first time here.
But to me, like, that doesn't matter, right? And so it was like this really surly waitress, and then So I'll get to the other part of the incident that happened, to where I don't leave negative reviews, y'all, because I'm so sensitive about our own negative reviews and whatever. So if I've got a great experience, I'll rave about that all day long. But if somebody, like even on Etsy, somebody sends a review this product, I'll ignore it if I don't like the product.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to put something bad on your site.
Right.
And I know there's pros and cons to that, and am I helping other consumers, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, bottom line, my philosophy is I don't really do it. This is the one time I've left a negative review because it was that annoying to me. So anyway, so just stopping right there alone, I think to me, I start drawing parallels on, like, are our teams doing this? Is this where, because I remember we had one employee once, and she was our only employee to date, who patients were like, I do not want to talk to her on the phone.
Yeah.
That should have been our red flag alone to let her go a long time ago.
Yeah.
Not only did I not do that, I rehired her when she moved back in town, like dummy. And had to turn around and fire her again later, right? But, well, I guess the first time she left because she moved, and then the second time I had to fire her. But that was stupidity on my part. Like, I knew better.
Yeah.
And yet anyway. Live and learn, right?
Again.
Exactly. Again and again and again and again. But I remember her, like, several times would come back and be like, this dad, you know, he won't stop asking about his copay. And I remember coaching her once and going, well, if you repeat yourself and, like, you know, well, that's not covered by your copay. Well, that's not covered by your copay. Well, that's not covered by your copay. Like, the problem's not him, the problem's you. Yeah. And I remember I said that once, and she looked like I had slapped her. And she, you know, because I should be defending her.
Right.
Lunatic man, and the plight of us that are in the dental industry against these, like, terrible, dumb patients. And I'm like, actually, if you're repeating yourself, like, 3 times the same thing over and over again, it's not that parent, it's you.
Right.
You need to figure out what your verbiage is. What are you... That's you not understanding what that patient's asking.
Not listening well enough to know what they're asking.
Yes, not thinking outside the box enough to know. And I'm like, how many times a day does that happen in our office, at the front or in the back, you know, with the team? Like, oh, well, you know, we need to use the mouth prop. And he wouldn't hold the mouth prop in. Well, he wouldn't let us use the mouth prop. The mouth prop, the mouth prop. Like, does the parent even know what you're talking about at that point?
Right.
When you do a composite, well, your insurance downgraded this to an amalgam. What?
Yeah.
The insurance did what? Dug out what? You know what I mean? It's like, well, they downgraded it. They downgraded it. That's why you owe a balance.
Yeah.
So, is it the patient or is it us?
Mm.
And at the end of the day, we can blame the patient all we want to, but at the end of the day, who's going to suffer for that? Us, because somebody's going to leave us a negative review or not come back to our office.
Right.
Same as this restaurant. I will not go back to that establishment. Not over these little things. Something more happened, and I can get to that later. But anyway, I just wanted your thoughts on...
Oh, I think you're hitting the nail on the head, and what a good way to think about it from a restaurant standpoint that's totally outside of the dental world. But I can't tell you how many times I see that version of communication where it's like, if we just repeat it enough and keep saying it even the same way, that somehow it's going to eventually click, and it just doesn't, because we're not... Who cares if they're called the fajitas, the fajitas, the Luna, whatever they are? Like, break it down. Are we talking about a skillet that comes out with chicken on it and some bell peppers and onions? Yeah, that's what we're talking about. And instead, in the dental world, we focus on the technical terms. And even if we've come up with cutesy names of calling it the fajitas instead of the Luna, whatever you said, like that, we're still, if the parent's not getting our layman's terms and they're still having to ask questions, well, then are we truly explaining the nuts and bolts of it in a way that's just the simplest way we can possibly get it? Or the ability to rephrase.
Or is the patient... It's like the patient may not know what to ask.
Yeah.
And by repeating and repeating and repeating, a skilled person is going to go, I see what you're asking here.
Yeah.
You keep repeating the phrase, whatever, copay. You don't mean the copay. You mean the estimated portion. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's like, how can we train ourselves to catch ourselves doing that, I guess?
Yeah.
And how do you train team members to be more savvy than that?
Yeah. Well, and I would say my number one rule of thumb, and I was trying to figure out if this equates to the restaurant. I can't equate that right now, but to me, the paraphrasing. So it's interesting. I was talking with a client who had an upset parent, and she was trying to help this dad process what they were confused about. Insurance, x-rays, are they covered, are they not covered? The doctor needed the patient to have these x-rays, and the dad was fighting against that because he's gotten duped by by insurance not covering it before. This is an everyday conversation, right? It's super challenging.
Not duped by the insurance, duped by the dentist. That's who they blame.
Yeah.
The dentist.
Yeah, the dentist is the one that ultimately duped me this last time, and I don't want to be in that same situation again. And so one of the tips that I was telling her was the value of stopping to paraphrase what we think we're hearing from the patient or from the parent. Pausing to go, let me make sure I'm understanding you clearly. You are concerned about me taking the x-rays today because even though our verification shows that it looks like insurance says they're going to help you with those, you're worried that you're going to be in the same boat with a big bill because insurance ultimately doesn't help. Is that your concern? Yes, I don't want an unexpected bill. Okay, I value that. I've heard that. Now, let's continue the conversation. But just that moment to pause and make sure that we're hearing the question or the comment or the statement properly. Because so many times we're making assumptions in that process. So we could have listened to the dad saying, no x-rays, no x-rays, no x-rays. And we could have gone, this is a dad that believes in, radiation poisoning. And then we may go off on a whole tangent about the value of x-rays and how we have to have these x-rays in order to properly diagnose, blah, blah, blah. X-rays are safe. And we're not talking about anything. But just because we assumed he doesn't want the x-rays due to radiation poisoning, we went on this whole different path. And so I think pausing and going, let me make sure I understand this before I move on in the conversation.
So... I feel like a lot of team members will struggle with that because I don't think they ever... I think there's a lot who don't really understand the question, whether they really haven't been trained to do so, or somebody else always comes and rescues them. Any tips or suggestions on...
So this is where what you've done on your team, and I think it's important for others to consider, is we do need to put more communication emphasis on those team members that are stronger in it. That doesn't mean that Sweet Sally, who's poor at communication, isn't going to ever communicate with a parent or a patient, but can we restructure where her communication impact is minimized, and somebody who is stronger and able to be trained in reflective listening and things like that, that he or she takes on more of that burden of communication. So that doesn't solve all the problems, unfortunately, but I feel like we don't spend enough time thinking about who actually needs to be communicating on this particular issue and who doesn't, for that matter.
Right. And then any suggestions you have on where, if you do have a couple of people you're like, these two could they present well, people seem to like listening to them, how can I get them more training?
Yeah. So of course there's a ton of communication books out there, but my favorite way to practice communication is a professional version of charades. Essentially, it's like you can take little index cards, you can write the patient personality type, which again, go back to our personality episode to learn more about those, but you can write the patient personality type, you can write the motivation that they have, so they're motivated most by preventing problems, their barriers, they financially are struggling right now, and then you can write the situation, we're presenting this treatment plan to this parent. So the patient, the role play is that a team member of yours is taking that patient card and they're going, okay, here's my character, let me get in character, this is my name, this is my motivation, this is my barrier, and I'm about to have a treatment plan presented to me. Okay, got it. Then your team member, the other team member that you're working on communication with, they don't know what that card says. And then they're doing their thing. Okay, Sally, present this treatment plan to patient. Looks like a team member, but it's actually not a team member. And then the team is watching this dialogue unfold. And let it go. Don't stop and correct. Just let it go, and let's see how it plays out for the first time. Then once you get to the end of that fake scenario, you go, okay, what was good about that? What could we change? The team members that are watching this, by the way, should be taking notes, writing down, I would have said this instead, or I would have asked this question. So it's a very active observation, and then we're dialoguing about that. We pick the top 2 or 3 suggestions that the team made. So we might have had 20 suggestions, but we're like, these are our top 2 or 3 favorite. Okay, Sweet Sally, you're going to try this again. Now you know a little bit more, but you're going to try these suggestions and let's see how it rolls out this time. Obviously, it won't be exact verbatim as we did the first time, but we're just going to see the impact of those 2 or 3 comments. It is, to me, one of my favorite ways to practice communication, because we can talk about communication tips all day long. We can read books. We can watch movies. There's fantastic movies of speakers that you're like, oh, they're such a powerful communicator. But the act of putting it in our setting and practicing it is, to me, you can't beat that practice.
Okay, I just got a really good idea.
Yeah.
Playbook. Can you create like
yes.
a playbook that has like 5 scenarios, 10 scenarios, whatever?
Mm-hmm. That will be in the October digest. By the way, shout out, we've got some new members that jumped on board in September, so welcome, members. We're so happy to have you, and you guys can look for communication role play in October.
I mean, that's something you could throw out new scenarios every quarter in a playbook.
Oh my gosh, yes, love it. I'm putting it down.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so that's for communication. I think so I guess how would you discern if your team is doing that? I mean, I think one way is if there's a patient complaint.
Yes.
But would you suggest, or how would you suggest, like listening in at your front desk every now and then, or listening into treatment presentations, or?
For sure. So we focused a lot on phones over these last few weeks. And by the way, that is a part of Sucktember Digest, is actually how to audit phone calls and listen to those with discretionary listening and trying to give feedback. So to me, it's much harder to find the ability to listen to conversations because usually those aren't recorded. Phone calls, it's easy to go back and listen to them. So we do have to kind of insert ourselves into conversations. Sometimes that's just lingering out in the hallway, especially if, like you and I are in a closed room right now, it would be hard to hear a treatment plan presentation or education during a patient appointment. But if we're in most dental offices, it's open doors and we can stand out in that hallway and listen. When I go into offices, a lot of times I'm observing. I'm never in the room. I'm usually lingering out in the hallway. Now, one disadvantage is a lot of times I can't actually physically see what's happening, because if I were to place myself where I could see, the patient can also see me. And so that's one disadvantage. It's ideal if we can observe from an area where we can see and hear. And that may just be if it's in a closed room, or if you want to insert yourself into the operative room where you're in with the patient, then you're there through the whole appointment. It's odd to jump in just at the end of the appointment and you don't get a full feeling of the communication that's been developed. And so I would actually encourage, if you're going to sit in and actually listen, to be there throughout the whole appointment. You get permission from the patient. So you would, let's say it's the hygienist that's going, oh, by the way, Joe, this is Sally. She's, coming in and she's going to be observing me and helping me to do just an even better job. So she's just going to sit over here. She won't interfere with us. Is that okay with you, Joe? And then Sally sits over in that corner and she is silent. Not a word, no eye contact. I call it the fly on the wall mode. She wants to become invisible so that she ultimately doesn't impact that communication. And the longer that she's in there invisible, the more natural the communication will become from both Joe and the hygienist. So they'll kind of settle in. But it's easy enough to observe from the outside of the room as well. And then again, taking notes and bringing those notes to the team for feedback on, hey, here's some things that we could do better.
And I was even just thinking about from the doctor's side, kind of almost like we were talking about, like the the mystery calls.
Yeah.
And auditing phone calls. Like, this is another one where it is very tempting for me to just go to the office, shut the door, and hope that somebody's explaining it right and a parent is going to agree to do whatever that person talked about, this amalgam and this and the space maintainer and the whatever, right? Like, I'm hoping that somebody explains it better than that and the parent is on board. But taking the time to kind of eavesdrop a little bit. I think one of my best times to be able to do that is when I help in sterile.
Yeah.
And y'all have heard me say this before. I love helping in sterile. But that's a really good spot to stand, because you are kind of a fly on the wall, but you can hear a lot of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. It's a good central spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you're having to linger right outside the hallway. Like, the exact point that you're making is, if you've got a good central spot, whether that's sterilization or there's a computer right beside your pano that is very centrally located, and so planting yourself there, and you can be getting stuff done while you're listening, but you're just overhearing conversations. And I don't think we do that enough. And I think communication is so critical in a medical dental field. It's so important. Like, if there's anything that we're going to practice communication on, why would we not do it in the medical dental profession, where we're talking about people's health here? So I think it's worthwhile to spend time observing your team and to practice role play communication so that we can get better at it.
Okay, so I'm gonna finish what happened.
Yeah, I gotta hear more.
So I think this goes back to, again, and I'll relate it back to dentistry and my thoughts on this. And it goes back to, again, it makes sense to us because we understand. But if we don't proactively communicate expectations, just because we know it doesn't mean everybody knows it. And so anyway, after surly, as my father-in-law called her, she was very surly. And so we laughed about that. She disappears, whatever. food comes, and the fajita thing was actually pretty cool, or the whatever she called it. But it was like this tower, probably about a foot high and like, I don't know, 9 inches wide, like a square. And the fajitas were sizzling on top. It smelled amazing. It sounded amazing. Like, it was like, okay, this is great. So she sets it down. That was that. So I take the tongs and I'm trying to get the fajitas off, and it's still like splattering at me. So I get a few like little burn marks. Nothing big, not a big deal, whatever. I was like, whoo, these are hot, you know? So I put some on my kid's plate because she and my husband were going to share, and I was kind of the middle point there. So I put some on her plate, and then I get my food and I'm eating whatever. My husband's working on eating something else. Well, all of a sudden, I kind of see him, and he reaches over and he's like, oh my God. And I was like, what? And he's like, those tongs are burning hot.
Oh, wow.
So what we had there in the foot-high tower that the fajitas were in at the top, I guess in Texas, or any other time I've had fajitas, if they bring it out on a sizzling platter, there's usually like the sizzling platter with like wood around it, or silicone or something. And then they always put the plate in front of you, and they're like, hey, it's a really hot plate, be careful. Well, surly waitress said nothing and just set the tower there. There's no border around this metal metal iron, and it's about like an inch of a border, and that, you know, kind of in one dimension, and then like 2 inches in another dimension. And it's, you know, piping hot, which we knew. They're sizzling, we know they're hot, but nobody bothers to tell us that there's still a gas can in it. So that tower, there was a gas can in the middle part that keeps it hot. And I mean, I guess I saw the can, but I just didn't
register.
It just didn't, And then these metal tongs they give you, like those cheap metal tongs. So I, of course, I'd taken the fajitas and I left the tongs on top of the plate of fajitas. So all of that like cast iron heat has now transferred to these tongs, where my husband goes to grab the tongs and like burns his fingers.
Oh my gosh.
So he was like, oh my God. And I was like, what? And I was like, oh my God. You know, like, I felt terrible because I'm the one who left the tongs there. But at the same time, who gives you these cheap metal tongs? Like, in Texas, they don't have that.
Yeah.
they don't give you poor quality tongs.
Not to mention, just from a liability standpoint, you would think that they wouldn't do that.
So my husband, who's not a baby and does not want to make a fuss, and so he was just kind of like, but I could tell he was uncomfortable. So I finally was like, hey, if you burned your fingers, like, go to the bathroom, run your hands under cold water because you're gonna blister later. And he gets up to go do that, which is not like him. Usually he'd be like, never mind, I'm fine. The fact that he got up to do it, I'm like, he must be hurting.
It hurt.
Then he comes back and he basically got a glass of ice water that nobody was using and was
had his hand in
there while trying to eat his fajitas, right? So I'm not one to usually say anything. I don't like confrontation. But I was just like, just thinking about it from a safety perspective, and as a business owner, to be like, I hate if somebody has something in my office that happens to them, but I would rather know about it than not.
For
like,
sure.
You've got, we tripped on that rug, like, can somebody fasten it down or whatever? Like, I would rather somebody tell me than not.
Yeah.
So I'm debating. A lady walks by, and I kind of, she ends up making eye contact with me, and I was like, are you the manager? And she's like, no, but I can get them for you. I said, well, I just wanted to let you know. She was like, well, what, is there something I can help you with? And I said, well, y'all bring this tower here, and it's burning hot. Nobody tells us that it's going to continue to stay hot. Because that's what they say, right? Like most places, this place hot, be careful.
Yes.
She didn't say anything, but that's not enough, actually, in this place. This is going to continue to stay hot for the next hour. And it did. Like, it was, you could hover your hand 3 inches above the fajitas, and it was still, you could feel the steam coming up. Because that can is still lit inside.
Yes.
And I said, and then there's no border here. There are these cheap metal tongs, like, just from a safety perspective, like, my kid could reach over right now to grab another fajita.
I mean, as awful as it sounds, thank goodness it was your husband, but what if it would have been the kids?
Yeah, but even like 30 minutes into the meal, she could still touch that and burn her finger on it.
Yeah.
Because it's still actively lit, and the waitress said nothing. And then y'all aren't helping yourself. So I just wanted to point that out. Like, y'all may want to get different tongs. Y'all need to have a team meeting to remind everybody to say something.
Yeah.
Because not everybody's going to know. And So the whole time I'm talking, she's like, okay, 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 I'll let the manager know. And she disappears. And so I kind of was like, could you check to make sure he's okay?
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't bother. No, she couldn't do that. So she disappears. 2 minutes later, the manager comes up and he's like, hey, she told me this happened. I'm so sorry that happened. You know, I'll take care of this meal for you. Like, that shouldn't have happened. Whatever.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like, I'm not squabbling about the bill.
Yeah.
The food was good and we ate it.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to point out that this is a safety thing. And before we can say anything, actually, because now he's heard the version that she's told him. So he's coming in going, hey, you know, I'll take care of this. But just, I've worked here for 1.5 years and this has just never happened before.
Huh.
Okay, well, it happened now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it's still hot. I was like, why don't you touch it? Oh, no, it's hot. I know it's hot, so I'm not going to touch it. And in my mind, I was like, there's hot and then there's like
scalding hot.
Scalding hot. And that's... Anyway, so at the end, he just kind of kept going, oh, this has never happened, and oh, we know it's hot, and oh, sorry that happened, and I'll take care of it, and whatever. And then my husband said something to him, and he was like, oh, well, I mean, are you okay? Do I need to call an ambulance? And I think that for me was the moment where I was like, you know what, you a-hole, like, get the F out of here.
Yeah.
Like, you are...
You're making fun of this now.
Right. And so, anyway, he leaves, and my husband was just like, you shouldn't have been... Basically, it was like, when I was asking him to touch it, and he was like, no, it's hot. My husband's like, basically, he was like, no, you idiot, I'm not going to touch it, neither should you, because it's hot.
Yeah, that's what he was saying.
That's what he was saying. But to me, I'm like, no, I know what hot is, but 30 minutes later, it shouldn't be this hot.
Right.
And if you're not willing to touch it, why are you letting my kid touch it?
Right. And serve it with... First of all, warn your customers, but then also serve it with tongs that can't transfer the heat, because you're going to dish the food up with the tongs that clearly conduct the heat.
Right. But apparently we're the idiots who should have known that. And so my husband's like, this whole establishment, from the surly waitress to being like, you didn't order the margaritas the right way and you didn't know which chicken was which. He's like, you can clearly tell from top to bottom, this is a place that thinks their customers are a pack of idiots.
Yeah.
And so I was like, that is exactly how I felt when I left here.
Yeah.
And it goes back to almost like when we've talked about in other episodes too, about if a patient complains and the reaction is, well, I'll just give them their money back. Well, but they may not want their money back.
Yeah.
I didn't care for that to be waived. I was perfectly ready to pay it.
Yeah.
But to me, I would have rather you taken it seriously to go, somebody could get hurt here.
Yeah.
Which then prompted me 2 days later to still go, you think we were this pack of idiots. Like, y'all are sitting there going, oh, dumbasses, they're touching the hot thing. Of course it's hot, dummy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't want to keep repeating, but you know what I mean there. So
yes.
I think for me, then that prompted me to leave my first 1-star review, and I was very detailed in it. So people might think, because that restaurant has a lot of good reviews, people might think that I'm the crazy one.
Yeah.
And a lot of people might be like, yeah, ding dong. Of course the pita plate's going to be hot. It's sizzling. I get that. But the fact that you did nothing to forewarn us. So the dental things that I kind of think about too, where when a patient bites their lip.
Yep.
Well, of course you're going to bite your lip. It was asleep. Duh.
Yeah.
Is that how our teams are handling it?
Yeah.
Or your, I don't know, the varnish. Well, duh. That's sticky in your mouth. That's just our varnish. So are there things that we are assuming the patient knows?
Yeah.
And are we making it worse? Are our teams making it worse? And therefore you don't sound empathetic, which is why you got that board complaint.
Right.
Because you were like, well, I mean, yeah, your gums are going to bleed. I did a scaling or root planing on you. Your gums have been bleeding for the last 5 years of your life. Of course they're going to bleed. But if we didn't take the time to tell the patient what to expect, just because it's clear as day to us, and same with this guy kind of going, well, no shit, plate of fajitas are going to be hot.
Yeah.
Stupid you for touching it.
Yeah.
I can see where he has a point to a degree, but overall, if that's how you're going to conduct yourself, you are opening yourself up to having a lot of pissy clientele.
And not only is it communicating things that we think are common knowledge in a way that is not... There should be no attitude. This is us realizing we have privileged knowledge that this patient does not have, but also going so far as to prepare them in advance for things that they might experience. Dr. Ludlow, who's been on the podcast before, I was in a team meeting with him recently, and he was talking about this very scenario, and he was saying that if a patient calls back in after getting fillings done and they're experiencing sensitivity, and then we choose to explain to the patient, oh, that's a normal part of the filling process. It's very common to have sensitivity for a few weeks afterwards. Just let us know if that doesn't go away. He was like, well, now it looks like we're defending that. He was like,
it's an excuse.
It's an excuse.
Yes.
But he was like, if we proactively communicate about that and we go, hey, I know you've had some fillings before, but just as a reminder, these composite fillings do have a tendency to make you a little bit sensitive. So you might have some sensitivity for the next few weeks. That's totally normal. If at any point it's lingering sensitivity or it doesn't seem like you're feeling any better, or if it hurts when you're biting, then it may mean that we need to do some adjustments and give us a call in that case. He was like, then if they call in and say, I've got sensitivity, they've already been told that this is normal, and we're not having to then say it in a border, it seems like a defensive way. And so this goes back to, like, we may think it's common knowledge that people get fillings, and yeah, you've had 2 fillings before, you should remember that you're going to have sensitivity. No, that's common knowledge to us because we see it every day. But taking something as simple as that and going, hey, you might experience this, or hey, we put that fluoride on today, don't forget, it's going to feel a little bit sticky, it's totally normal, it'll wear off by the end of the day. Just little things like that are our everyday lives, but just slowing down to communicate that to the patient is so valuable.
And then not making them feel dumb. Well, yeah, we did a deep filling on you today, you're gonna be sensitive for a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, how are we handling those? And I think that, to me, it was just a really stark reminder of me going, I need to start listening again in my office to make sure my team isn't doing that or making anybody feel that way.
Yeah. And even, I think you made such an important point when you said that they came over and they were addressing the problem, but never looked and asked your husband, are you okay? And so many times I think this happens in our offices. A patient calls in and says, man, I'm sensitive. And we're like, oh yeah, that's totally normal, blah, blah, blah. We haven't even stopped to go, oh my goodness, tell me more about that. Yeah, okay. And it's happening all throughout the day, or just, we don't even we know what they're going to say. We already know the answers to the questions. For the most part, we know what they're going to say. Let's go with the sensitivity after a filling. But why just dismiss that and not actually hear them? Like, just slow down, take 30 seconds to show that you're concerned. And, oh, I know that sensitivity is so annoying. I totally get that. Let me ask you a few questions about it. Okay, let me remind you. Everything you've said sounds normal, right? So we're just being gentle with that and checking on the patient to make sure that they're okay. Because I think that's first and foremost what we need to do.
I think the other way feels dismissive.
Yeah.
And you get or like my husband, who's not a sensitive Sally, and for him to go, they clearly view their clients as idiots.
Yeah.
And I think that for me stuck out with me, and I'm like, fair game. I'm not saying I'm the sharpest tool in the shed, but there comes a point here where I shouldn't have left the tongs on the hot thing.
Yeah. But
I don't think most of the misstep was with us. It was definitely with y'all.
Exactly. Yeah. No, this is such a good topic, and it brings us back to just the value of communication in a different way. It's like we focused on it pretty heavily with phones this last month, the last few weeks, but the in-person communication and how we handle that is just critical.
I think it's just easy to get in your rut, especially this time of year. It's like, oh my God, it's September, Christmas is coming, summer, God.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yep, you just got some fillings, your lips can be dumb, blah, blah, blah. So just maybe a refresher to pause and make sure that you are delivering that outstanding communication with every patient.
Yes. Yeah. Love it.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.